Hey, what's up? So let's pretend that I could snap my fingers, and when I do, you can get everything you ever wanted. If I could do that, you'd be pretty happy, right? Now let's pretend that I snap my fingers, you get everything you ever wanted, but also everyone else in the world also get everything you ever wanted. Meaning that everything that you want is really easy to come by. It's not very hard to achieve, right? Would that make you less happy in the first scenario? I think it would, because to some degree, our happiness is dependent on not just what we get, but also what we get in relative to what other people have, right? A good example of this is I just recently learned, they talk about America in the 1950s was a really booming economy, but really it wasn't as good as it is now. For example, even with inflation, people were living in smaller houses, and more people were living in houses, smaller houses. So there was more people and less space. People are actually spending a larger part of their budget on food. Healthcare was more expensive, and there's a number of other things as well. Um, and then so what was happening is in the 1950s they're comparing themselves to the 1930s. And the 1930s was really bad because of the Great Depression, and also because of the war, they actually held incomes very closely. So they were actually restricting incomes both on the top and the bottom. So everyone was kind of making around the same wage. And because of this, you don't have anything to compare to, right? So even if you weren't doing so well, your neighbor wasn't doing so well either. So everyone is kind of doing about the same. So everyone was relatively happy. You can compare that to now, where you're not even looking for. You go on your phone, you can see how someone from across the country, across the world is is living, and you're missing out on that lifestyle, and you're just seeing that in your Instagram feed all day or whatever. So it just causes a lot. It's a lot easier to be unhappy. So whether you like it or not, the level of your satisfaction with your life or your happiness generally is dependent on what other people have as well. And whether or not you should be basing your happiness on external factors, I think that's a different discussion. But just say in general, this is happening. So, what I think is a really good skill set to develop in order to be happier is not just looking at the positives of what you have, but looking at the negatives of the things that you want. So, I think it's important to know first that things are not all good or all bad. So getting a new job, is that all good? No, there's negatives to it as well, right? Let's say your girlfriend broke up with you. Is that all bad? No, there's good things to it as well, right? So things are not all good or all bad. Actually, I go as far as saying things aren't even good or bad. Things are just things, and you have a perception of whether or not they're good or bad. But for the sake of the argument, let's just say from your perception, things are not all good and all bad. So a lot of the advice you hear about being happy is probably talking about gratitude, right? Just being really grateful for things you have. So basically, that's focusing on the good things that you have. And a lot of the reason people are unhappy is probably because they just only focus on the negative things that are going on in their life, and they don't focus on the positive things. So I think the gratitude thing really works. But I think you can probably take it a step further by focusing on the negative things that you don't have, right? Because when you're thinking about other situations, you typically only think about the good. And when you think about your own situation, you only think about the bad, and that's why you're unhappy. So you're on Instagram, you see how great this person's life is. They're, at hotels on vacation or whatever, but you don't really imagine all the other bullshit that they go through because you don't see it, right? And then when you think about your own life, you gotta think about the bullshit you gotta go through because you're in it, right? That's what you're focusing on. Even when you're thinking about your own scenario, like I really want to achieve this. My life will be so great once I achieve this, right? You're pretty much only thinking about the positives of it, and you're not really thinking about the negatives, right? So I think it'd be helpful for you to focus on the negatives of those things to be more level. So once you do achieve that, you're not going to be surprised by reality, right? Because in reality, once you achieve that thing, you'll probably be happy for a little bit and then you're going to go back to normal. So it's really important for you to focus on how to be happy now. And I think just focusing on the negatives of what you don't have is a really important thing that I don't really think anyone talks about. Hope this helps. And hey, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Appreciate it. Thank you.